Welcome back to the Lincoln Project. I'm your host, Reed Galen. Today, I'm joined by Olivia Troye, former Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Advisor to Vice President Mike Pence. She's currently the Executive Director of 97%, a bipartisan gun safety organization. Today, she's coming to us from the Washington, D.C. area. Olivia, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Hi, Reed. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, too. Okay, so there's a lot going on in the world, in the political world. Not surprisingly, we're now in an election year. But I want to start with this. And for our audience, I want to make sure everyone in the audience knows. My partner, my brother in arms, my co-founder of the Lincoln Project, Rick Wilson, the one and only Rick Wilson, was swatted last night as we were recording this. And what that means, gang, is someone calls in, and Olivia, if I get anything wrong here, please, correct me.
Sure.
That someone calls in a fake police report saying that you have killed someone in your home and you have barricaded yourself in, you're heavily armed. The idea being that the SWAT team in swatting comes to your home. And, if this is handled in an incorrect way, right, either by the police who are trying to figure out a dangerous situation or the person in the house who responds by trying to defend themselves against something they don't know because they hear banging on their door in the middle of the night, it could lead to tragedy, bloodshed, unintentional killing, et cetera, et cetera. This is not the first time Rick's been swatted, but it sounds like that, Jack Smith and the judge overseeing Donald Trump's, insurrection trial, for whatever we're going to call it, Olivia, have been swatted in recent weeks. It sounds like that there is a rash of this going on. Now, you have some personal experience with political threats, and you are also a counterterrorism expert. So I want to ask, when you left the vice president's office, Mike Pence's office, and we're very close to the January 6th, anniversary as well, as when you decided to come out against Donald Trump personally and the Trump administration, walk us through a little bit of what that looks like as you are considered now a traitor to the cause. Because, and I'll end my monologue here, is that, guys, it's important to understand that for these people, betrayal is the biggest sin, right? If you're a longtime enemy or on the outskirts or a political opponent, right? You're a Democrat, that's one thing. But if you have been part of the hive and you have left and turned on them, Olivia, that's really the cardinal sin. So take us a little bit through what it feels like, even up to this moment, which I know that, you're never far from being harassed by these people.
Yeah, look, I think you're absolutely right. It is different when you come from within, as they say. Look, this has actually been mentioned it was actually mentioned in a lawsuit against me, where the person suing me actually raised this during it and said, well, the reason that I'm concerned about what she's been saying is because she's more credible, because she came from within. And they were like, well, all these people call you this name. They call you this all the time. Why her? And he said, because she worked for Mike Pence. She worked in the White House. So it's a different level of betrayal here when you do this. And look, when I considered coming forward, I have to tell you that I knew that it would be bad. I went into it very, very aware of what I was about to do and what it would mean for me and my family. But I will say that it is hard to really understand it until you're in it. And I watched some of my other colleagues, like Miles Taylor at DHS, he came forward. And I knew that it had been really bad for him. And just remember, I was inside. I was hearing what they were saying about these people. So I was very prepared for what was to come internally on how they would react and the things that would be said about me amongst colleagues that I had worked closely with for over 2.5 years. What I wasn't prepared for was I knew that there would be threats. I had no idea the extent and the unwavering commitment by this movement to continue the harassment. It's not like it fades. It just follows you forever.
Well, and that's one thing. I was talking with some other people this morning about, there's the political violence, the swatting, the threats, the frivolous lawsuits, et cetera. And this is one thing I think it's always important to remember, Olivia, and you're still dealing with it, is one, these people have no scruples. There is nothing they won't do. And secondly, and we've seen this for a long time, there is an unending stream of money that will support all of this stuff.
That is the issue. Is the machine behind this, it's driving it. It's never ending. And it's well supported, like you said. I think that is, something that sometimes doesn't get discussed in the forefront of it. I think we don't discuss sort of like what's going on behind the scenes. and how really all of these people are working together and how it is funded and how, when you're on I would say the defense side of it, trying to figure out how you protect yourself, how do you defend yourself, how do you keep your family safe? I'll tell you, personal security is very expensive, incredibly expensive. It's an ongoing thing and a struggle for a lot of these people. And, one thing I would mention is that I was having this conversation with a colleague earlier today who said something nice about someone on Trump's staff recently. And there's concern when you say that about a former colleague, about saying they're a good person or they're a person that's going to follow the rule of law. There's an immediate anxiety, which sounds so irrational, about, oh, did I just put that person in the crosshairs? Unwillingly. Like, I didn't mean to do that. I am just speaking honestly about that individual. But knowing how these people work, it's unbelievable that there's a slight fear of like, I may have just put that person in jeopardy just by saying that because of who I am and the intent of it. And you're just speaking in a normal situation or conversation, or you're talking to someone in media or gets covered. And the next thing you know, that person's in the hot seat and you have no idea what you've done to them or how they're going to pay for it later.
Well, let me take a little bit of the flip side of that from a personal perspective, because again, so much of this does become intensely personal, and I don't know how it could be otherwise. Is when you and I was in Washington D.C. before Christmas, you and I had a chance to sit down in person and talk through some things. But I saw a person who I'd considered one of my best friends in the world while I was there. This was a person who had at least 2 very senior jobs in the first Trump administration. And I'll tell you, even after all we've seen with his 4 years in office and the 3 years hence, this person who I considered, to be as close to me as there was, had no compunction about what had happened, what was happening, was perfectly willing to go back into a Trump administration if there is another one at a probably even more senior level, had actually told me sort of in an offhanded way, Olivia, that they'd been working with the Heritage Foundation on, changes to the bureaucracy, which is this Project 2025 thing, which we could probably do a whole series on. Maybe we should.
Which is scary.
Right. Yeah. And at the end, they said, all right, good to see you. Best of the wife. And it was like, it was over. Right. I mean, there's a really good chance I'm never going to talk to that person again, maybe trade Christmas cards or something. But it was almost hollowing. Right, Olivia, to see somebody you'd been so close to, you thought you knew so well, to realize like they've crossed over. And I don't know that there's any coming back.
No, I don't think there is. I can't tell you the number of times where I saw rational colleagues around me, even in the White House. And now they're even more so. They've doubled down on it. Where I saw the transformation happen before my very eyes. Look, I think the palace intrigue is real, the draw of power. And I think at some point, I think these people have decided that there's nowhere else to go. And this is their network and they're going to double down on it. And I just question, how do you sleep at night? Because you know everything that's happening. You know that it's wrong. All of these people are aware of it at this point, right? I mean, some of them have drank the Kool-Aid and have decided that they're okay with it, and their way is the way forward, and there's no negotiating with them. But it is hard to see people that you've respected for many years, or you've at least maintained a friendship with. I mean, look, it happened to me. I started my career at the Republican National Committee, and I watched some of the people during the Bush administration that I worked very closely with, who have completely gone off the deep end, and they're all in, and they're MAGA and they're Trumpist till the end.
Well, and this is something I see with, if we want to, let's refer to, this is a political party, right? In the case of a Donald Trump, he runs the party. It is an authoritarian movement. But, the kinds of people we're talking about too are, in the Soviet Union, it was part of the apparat, right? They're apparatchiks. They're party people. Whatever the party wants, that's where they're going to go. Whatever the party's willing to do, that's where they're willing to go, because to them, and I think oftentimes I believe anyway, Olivia, you've been in the belly of the beast, so you might have a better sense, that we sometimes, try and ascribe some philosophical belief system to these people because you have to believe that there's something that they're actually there for. When at the end of the day, I think it's very simple. I think it's power and money and self-aggrandizement. I don't think it's a gang. I don't often think it gets more sophisticated than that.
Yeah, I agree with that, because if you have these closed door conversations with these people, they'll sit there and be like, yeah, that was nuts. Or they'll walk out of a meeting and roll
Right.
their eyes and be like, whoa, that was crazy, right? There were a lot of moments like that. And you kind of look at them because you're like, okay, but if it's crazy, why are you showing up at the next meeting parroting the crazy? That is the issue, right? And so to go back to Project 2025, right? What concerns me about that, in the vein of what we're talking about, is that what worries me is that I saw actually people in government who were not in political positions get drawn in. And so while we think about guardrails and we think about the people, how will these people react? I actually became concerned when I saw people in the intel community or civil service sort of get drawn in by the Kool-Aid and get taken in, quite honestly, politically taken advantage of by some of these people who were seeing the opportunity to use these people as pawns. And some of them got drawn in because it's how they were moving up. And if it meant they were going to get like that position of power, or they were going to move up in some political appointment or move up at the National Security Council, I saw a lot of people bend their own values and oath and their commitment that I've seen them throughout 20 years of working in national security start to change. And I think that's what worries me about Project 2025, right? They're going to purge the people in government and they're going to look for loyalists. But as part of that, I feel like there's going to be a conversion to loyalty because people are going to be scared. It's also fear, right? I saw this in the travel ban meetings. I saw it in the Afghanistan meetings. I saw it in the refugee meetings where we were having these serious discussions about all of these Stephen Miller extreme policies. And the fear was real in that room where people they were so careful about their words in these meetings, how they were going to talk about the policy. How are they going to present their department's position on it? Because they didn't want to become targeted. And I say that because that's something to think about as we go into this on what's at stake here.